Hello and welcome to America's Veterans. My name is Len Sorotsky and I will serve as your host. The focus of today's program is on one Marine veteran of the war in Iraq. His name is Michael Jernigan, and you will meet him shortly. If you look up modern conflicts in the Middle East, you will note that from 1902 to the present, Wikipedia lists 85 individual conflicts. That's 85 conflicts in 110 years. The Iraq War, of most interest to us, began with an invasion by the United States, supported by a large coalition of United Nations members in March 2003. The war seemed widely accepted because of its perceived relationship to the downing of the Twin Towers in 2001, and also great fear of the Iraqi President Saddam Hussein and his development of nuclear weapons. None was ever found. The war ended in December 2011, nearly 9 years. Statistics are often vague or misleading, but the estimated cost of the Iraq War is about $802 billion. 4,486 U.S. troops were killed in action. About 8 times that number, more than 32,000, were wounded. Michael is one of those 32,000. Let's meet him now. Michael, give me your hand.
How you doing?
Well, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
We're gonna talk about your life, Michael, and and when we do that,
How much time do you have?
about an hour and a half.
All right.
Well, we've got time. That's the one
Okay.
thing. That's the
All
one
right.
thing we have on our show is we can move around the way however we want.
It's an interesting life.
Well, I always like to start out with tell us, your audience, tell us, where are you from? Where was your home? And
I'm from St. Petersburg, Florida.
so you're a Florida kid.
I was born in St. Petersburg. Now, from 1980 until 1992, my dad was in the Army and we moved around a bit. But I spent most of all my summers still in St. Petersburg. And then my dad retired in December of 1992, and we moved back to St. Petersburg, Florida, where I finished out junior high school and high school and started my first attempt at college. And
Yeah. Do you remember the name of your high school?
St. Petersburg High School.
Well, yippee.
It's the same high school my grandfather graduated from.
Good for you. Good for you. And so, as a young boy, I think we got a couple of pictures of you in different kinds of sport, like bowling and.
I did bowling as a kid. I played Little League Baseball. When I was in high school, or in junior high school, I played football and ran track. I played football for one season in high school, ran track for one season in high school, and then got into competitive cheerleading because it made more sense. And that was really, I didn't play any sports after school.
Okay. So you played football for 1 year. What you do? Kill all the other kids?
No, I wasn't very good. I was a mediocre football player at best.
But you enjoyed it.
I did.
Yeah. And you liked. I understand you had a liking for cars and stuff. Is that?
I did like cars.
Yeah.
I liked I like to drive fast. Used to like to drive fast.
Yeah.
You know, we always said drive it like you stole it. Which means I wrecked a few of them. I had 18 major traffic violations by the time I was 22 years old.
Nice going. Is that a record?
I don't know if it's a record,
Whoa.
but it's a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, I actually lost my license for reckless driving right before I enlisted in the Marine Corps. And then with my training and deployment schedule, I was never able to get my license back. I never had time to get my license back until I came home from Iraq, and by then I was blind. So
Yeah. Well, you can have my license. I don't use it anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Interesting. The state of Florida won't let me drive, but they issued me a concealed weapons permit in
Nice
2006.
Yeah.
So God love the South.
yeah, I know. And besides cars, besides bowling, the other sports and so on, you also must have had some kind of passion for aircraft.
I grew up flying. My grandfather, when I was growing up, had a Cessna 172. My stepdad just sold his Cherokee 180. So I grew up flying in small little four-seater aircraft.
Yeah.
You know, it really enjoyed that. Spent a lot of great time with my grandfather as a kid doing that.
Yeah. So boats also, right? Your family had a...
Well, I grew up in St. Petersburg, Florida, right on Tampa Bay. You know, it's one of those things. Boats, planes, cars, motorcycles.
No trains.
You know what though?
Trains, what?
I got involved in riding trains a lot when I met my wife. Because I lived in Alexandria, Virginia, and my wife lived in Richmond, Virginia, so I would ride the train back and forth.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But we don't have a lot of trains in Florida.
No, not a lot. Yeah. Well, we used to have one that ran down to Key West, but a hurricane got it in 1935.
It was a little before both of our time.
No, it's not before mine.
1935?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was the engineer on the train.
Were you?
No, that's a lie. but I was born in 1935.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah. So you went through school. It sounds like you had a pretty ruckus young life. Would that be a true account?
I don't know. Ruckus is the right term.
Right
it wasn't misspent totally.
Yeah.
I had a great life growing up. When I got in high school, I got a little wild, you know. But I was blessed with able to do a lot of different things. You know,
Sure.
we got into scuba diving and it's just a lot of great stuff.
Michael, I have to interrupt our conversation because I failed to tell our audience that we are recording this program at Southeastern Guide Dogs in Palmetto, and so you may hear a dog bark from time to time.
A few of them.
I don't know. You know, that's
What you hear right now is our kennels.
Yeah.
Our training kennel. Sometimes the dogs start to bark a little bit when people come around.
You're familiar with this place, right?
Familiar, yes.
Yeah.
Very familiar.
Yeah.
I now work here.
Yeah.
I'm a community outreach coordinator at Southeastern Guide Dogs. I started in with Southeastern in January of 2006 as a volunteer. I got my first dog then. I was the first recipient of a Paws for Patriots dog.
Yeah.
I also helped found the program. And I've been volunteering ever since, and after I graduated from college, I came to work full-time.
Okay. I don't want to get into that too much, but we should also introduce your partner over there.
This is Brittany down here. Yeah.
She is
She's
quite
a good
the dog,
girl.
right?
Yeah. I've had Brittany
beautiful.
for like 5.5 years.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh,
She's a good girl.
Cool.
We lived in D.C. together and in St. Pete.
When you got through with all that young life, you decided, I think, that you wanted to go and perform your duty and serve your country.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Well, it's very noble the way you said it.
You're a noble guy.
At 23 years old, I had hit a point in my life where I had failed out of junior college. I went to a 2-year school for 4.5 years. Had a 1.16 GPA. I had gotten into a lot of debt, had to declare bankruptcy, and was drinking quite a bit. I was bartending at the Don Cesar Hotel on St. Pete Beach, and I just looked up one day and said, I don't want this. This is not the life I want.
Yeah.
And I decided to join the Marine Corps.
That's cool. Why the Marines?
My grandfather was a Marine. My dad did 8 years in the Marine Corps before doing 12, 13 in the Army. So when I thought about joining the military, Marines popped into my head first off, and I didn't think of anything else.
So you're a third generation Marine.
Third generation.
You'll always be a Marine, Michael.
I know.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
And once you got into Marines, I assume you enlisted in St. Petersburg?
I enlisted in St. Petersburg on, and then the MEP station, the processing station is actually in Tampa, but I went through a recruiting office in St. Petersburg. I did my first enlistment there in Tampa, was sworn in on October 18th, 2002, which was my 24th birthday, and my father was the officer that swore me in.
Wow, that's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
And then after boot camp, where?
Went to Camp Geiger in Jacksonville, North Carolina for the School of Infantry. I was in the infantry training battalion there, learning how to be an infantryman, which meant I was learning how to repel ticks, dig holes, use a field expedient bathroom.
Yeah, and in those days, you did not know you were going to Iraq. You were just training as a Marine, right?
It was actually when I was at Camp Geiger that we invaded Iraq. And I did not know for sure I was going to Iraq, but we had been in combat in Afghanistan for, at that point, a year and a half. We had just gone into Iraq, and I was a Marine infantryman. You know, Marines fight wars, it's what they do. So I knew that I was going to be in a combat zone. I did not know which one, and I knew it would be soon enough.
Yeah. A question about your training. Were you ever given the story of Iraq, a history of Iraq, or did you know about Iraq before you went there? Or did they just say,
I knew,
go?
I knew what happened in 1990-91, and I knew that Saddam Hussein was crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't think I needed to know any more than that.
Yeah.
But I did not have a...
But not the history.
I did not know the history.
Yeah, okay. That kind of surprises me. Not because of your, but I think that we really ought to know a little bit more about who we're dealing with, you know.
Well, before we deployed, we did get briefs on the culture, the customs, a brief bit about the history, where we were going. Mm-hmm. And just enough to make us dangerous, I guess. Yeah. You know, a little bit of knowledge is dangerous.
Well, and that's probably true. But I was just wondering if we were telling our troops where you're going, you know, because I know other times we did, like in World War II, no one knew what was going on.
By the time I got to 2-2, I knew where we were going. I knew we were going to Iraq. It's the reason I transferred to 2-2 was so I could go to Iraq. I didn't know what city we were going to be in,
right,
but I knew we were going to the Anbar province, and I knew we were going to Iraq, and we were very excited.
Okay, so, but you didn't go directly from the U.S. to Iraq. You went
actually after Camp Geiger, I went to the fleet. I was in a subunit because my unit that I had been transferred to was deployed to Iraq at the time. And I was at Camp Lejeune in Jacksonville for a month and a half, and I got sent to Okinawa, Japan for 6 months. So I actually deployed, before I went to Iraq, I deployed to Okinawa, Japan as an active duty augment to a reserve battalion. So I went with Weapons Company, 1st Battalion, 25th Marine Regiment to Camp Schwab, Okinawa for 6 months. Yeah. From June to December of '03. And then I came, it was my last month in Okinawa. One of the, I think it was the police sergeant, knocked on the door and asked me, he said, "Are you Jernigan?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Would you volunteer to cross deck to a unit going to Iraq?" And I said, "Hell yes." And
you were anxious.
Oh, hell yeah. We were actually, I was augmented with there were 75 of us active duty Marines that went to this reserve battalion. Wow. So that they could deploy. And we were all very angry because we were coming out of SOI, we were gung-ho, we were ready to deploy, we wanted to go to the war. And here we got orders to go to Okinawa, Japan.
Yeah.
Which turned out to be a blessing. Yeah. You know, I got to enjoy that part of the Marine Corps before I went into combat.
When you got to Iraq, where'd you go?
Went to Kuwait first. We flew into Kuwait. I don't know where we flew into, but we took buses to Camp Udari. And that was actually pretty cool because we drove through the desert and there were herds of camels running through the desert. Like, you know, when you drive through the west, so through southwest, you see big herds of cattle or horses, stuff like that off the side of the interstate. There were no shit camels rolling. I probably shouldn't use that language. There was no joke camels on the side of the, you can edit that out. Yeah. There was no joke camel herds off the side of the road, and if you looked out on the horizon, you'd see them running across the desert.
Did you ever ride one?
No. No.
My wife and I rode camels around the pyramids.
Did you really?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. No, we saw camels in Kuwait, and then we saw 1 or 2 camels in Iraq that were pack animals for Bedouins.
Yeah.
But where I went in Iraq, I went from Camp Udari. I flew in a C-130 with a small contingent of Marines into Baghdad International. I did not have to make the convoy up, the 3-day convoy from Udari to Mahmadiyah. So I flew into Baghdad International in the back of a C-130. And let me tell you, very anticlimactic, okay?
Okay.
You know, you watched all the movies, all of this, you know, and in almost all the movies, the GI gets off a helicopter and starts getting shot at as he's welcome to combat, right? We landed at Baghdad International Airport in the C-130. The door opened, we walked out, we had our rifles with us, we had our packs, we walked onto the flight deck, and we're standing there just to get a brief. Somebody runs up and they said, all right, we're in touch with your unit. It'll be 2 or 3 hours before the convoy gets here to pick you up. You guys can hang out over here, and they pointed to an area. And there was an exchange there, like a shop. So we went in and bought like Gatorade and cigarettes, and you know, we're sitting around smoking and joking, just waiting. You know, and then the convoy pulls up, and we're like, wow, this was our entrance into Iraq. Yeah. You know, no fanfare, no rounds going off, nothing. We just walked off the plane onto a flight deck, went into a store, you know, bought some stuff and sat around.
So actually, how long were you in? I'm trying to figure that out. You were not in Iraq for too terribly long.
6 months.
6 months.
When I got whacked.
Yeah, and so
6 months on a 7-month tour. Yeah, it was only a 7-month tour. Yeah, so we were a month away from coming home when I got whacked. Wow. You know, I mean, I was almost done. We were short.
Well, you were almost done anyway, come to think of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, do you remember much about that day? Nah.
The mind has a beautiful way of,
I understand that.
Guarding that off.
Yeah, and that's good.
Yeah. I've been told this sequence of events.
Yeah. Do you want to share that?
I remember going out on the patrol. It was a mounted patrol. What we were doing was we were with the Iraqi police in a town called Mahmadiyah, which is where we were. And we were searching for a suspicious body, right? So we were looking for, somebody called in and said, there's a dead body over here. I was in the lead vehicle in the machine gun turret of a Humvee, and we got hit by a roadside bomb, which was 2 155 shells, 155 millimeter artillery shells dug in the roadside. Yeah. I got thrown 20 meters out of the vehicle. My entire forehead, where my hand is, was crushed in. Yeah. That whole piece. This finger and this finger had to be reattached. My whole right hand was crushed, had to be completely reconstructed. I took shrapnel to my left knee. And I was told that when I landed 20 meters away, I stood up and was screaming for my rifle so I could return fire. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I guess, you know, that's wonderful. Yeah. And then from there, a corpsman took care of me. Hospitalman 3rd class Christopher Thompson was the Navy corpsman that saved my life there on the battlefield. Cool. I went from the battlefield to our battalion aid station at FOB St. Michael, where from there I went to 31st Combat Support Hospital in Baghdad, and from there I went to Landstuhl, Germany, and from Landstuhl I came to Bethesda. I was blessed in that I had family most of the way. Yeah. My godfather, who at the time was an active duty Army colonel, came to visit me at the 31st Combat Support Hospital in Baghdad. Right.
And there's a little story about that, isn't there? Yeah. Didn't your mom...
Well, this is what happened, that my parents got word that I had been wounded. Yeah. And information was slow to come.
Sure.
And so my mom called called Mike Roden, my godfather, in an effort to say, get some information. What do I do to get more information? Who do I need to talk to? And Margie, his wife, answered the phone and said, well, Mike's actually on a flight to Iraq right now. I'll have him call you when he lands. And he landed, called his wife to, let her know I landed safely and everything. And she said, Mikey's been hit. Call Tracy. He called my mom and he said, well, Tracy, just give me a social security number. And he took my social down and he tracked me down. He found me at 31st Combat Support Hospital. So he had a group of soldiers from the 7th Cavalry, I believe, is what the story is, volunteer to drive him out to 31st Cache. Wow. Where he was there for at least a couple hours and was able to put my mom in direct contact with my surgeon in Iraq. And at that point, they had no idea. I'd been medically induced into a coma. They had no idea what my brain function was.
Right.
And he called my mom right at my bedside, and one of the things they did was put the phone on the pillow next to my ear, and my mom started to talk to me. And all of a sudden, my blood pressure spiked, and my pulse rate went up. And the surgeon said that's an excellent sign.
You recognize.
That means he's recognizing that voice, which means he's got brain activity. Yeah, and then my dad, at the time, was working at United States Europe Command in Stuttgart. So when I landed in Landstuhl, he was right there waiting for me with my stepmother when I got there. And he even rode on the medevac flight with me from Landstuhl to Bethesda, Maryland.
Wow. Lucky guy.
Yeah. When I got to Bethesda, everyone was there.
Now, I heard that you had to go to a hospital for some kind of surgery or something like that?
I did 30 major surgeries in 12 months.
30 surgeries in 12 months.
3 of them.
Wow. Yeah. That's a lot of surgery, Michael.
It is.
God.
It is. I don't remember a lot of them.
Yeah.
When I first got wounded, when I got to the cache, they medically induced me into a coma.
Sure.
Because it was safer than putting me into general anesthesia every time they needed to do surgery. Yeah. And I had to have my hand reconstructed. I had to have my knee reconstructed. I had to have my eyes removed. I had to have my head cleaned out. For the first 6 months, I had a hole in my head this big.
Yeah. That's pretty big.
Yeah, it was very large. In fact, there's a plate there now, and I was holding the 3D model they made the plate out of, and I could take my fist and push it through the hole into the brain cavity and not touch any of the bone with my fist. It was about 45% of my cranium was gone.
Yeah.
They had to wait 6 months to make sure all the swelling went down, to make sure the bruising subsided, and to make sure no infection set in. And then they cut me open again and put this plate in. It's acrylic plate. That's now my forehead. Yeah. I had some cosmetic surgery on my eyes, and I had some 6 reconstructive surgeries on my left eye socket trying to get that fully reconstructed, and just a lot of stuff, one after another.
And there's always new stuff coming along. Let me ask you, is there any chance that you could regain your eyesight?
At this point, no.
No. But who knows, right? Down the trail.
I'll tell you, Len, it's one of those things that I don't really hold out hope.
Right. But if it comes, we'll take it. Maybe.
It depends on where I am in life. Uh-huh. If I'm 65 years old and all of a sudden this brand new surgery comes out that can give me sight, I don't know if I'm going to want to go under the knife.
Or,
it just depends.
No, I understand that.
If it were to happen tomorrow, I'd be down.
So you were hospitalized for some long period of time, right?
I spent 16 months in hospitals and rehab facilities. Yeah. And I would go home occasionally on convalescent leave during that 16 months.
Wow. Yeah. And you were able to walk okay? Were you up and standing?
I don't know at what point, but my family finally got me up, walking around up and down the aisle of the hospital.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was good to go, walking just fine.
Good for you. What a story. Holy cow. So ultimately, you're released from all the hospitals. Where'd you go?
St. Petersburg, Florida.
And with your family?
Actually moved into a house on my own.
Did you really?
Yeah. Yeah, I moved into a house that I bought, wound up buying in 2006. 2-bedroom, 1-bath, like 1,200 square foot. There in St. Petersburg, real close to Tampa Bay.
Wow, cool. Boy, you're a strong guy.
You know, at 27 years old at that time, I was a little old to be living with my mom.
Yeah, I guess so.
You know,
but I know lots of guys who live with their moms way past 27.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But you know, at 27, I was financially stable, and I had the financial means to support myself. I had the physical capability to live on my own. I lived on my own.
Yeah, and was VA good to you through all of this? How do you feel about their medical stuff and everything?
They've been wonderful, to be honest with you. I went in October of '04, I went to the traumatic brain injury program at James A. Haley VA Hospital in Tampa. I was there for a month doing some rehabilitation. I did my blind rehabilitation at the Blind Rehab Center in Augusta, Georgia, at that VA. I spent 16 weeks there. They were marvelous. They taught me how to live independently. You know, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I transferred to the Bay Pines VA Hospital in St. Petersburg, Florida. They were good to me. I lived in Washington, D.C. for a little while. The Washington, D.C. VA was extremely good to me. You know, I have not had a problem with either VA medical or VA benefits, you know, with either side of the house.
Well, you shouldn't have.
Yeah.
I mean, holy crap.
You know.
But we know that there are always guys that gripe a little bit about, you know, they're not.
There's going to be people that always complain.
Yeah.
There are going to be people that fall through the cracks, admittingly. And then some people have to realize that the VA is not going to hold your hand through the process. You're going to have to do some of it yourself. I will not say that there aren't flaws in the system, because I'm sure there are. I did not experience any.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm happy to hear that, for darn sure. After you kind of got used to the world around you, after the hospitals and all of that sort of stuff, you had one of the luckiest days of your life. You met your wife, Leslie.
There was a lot before that.
Okay.
In 2006, I had gotten out of the Marine Corps 29 December 2005. And in 2006, like I said, I moved back to St. Petersburg. And it was a painful year, but a productive year in a lot of ways. I started drinking really heavily. You know, my demon of choice was Johnny Walker.
I know him.
Yeah, he's a liar. He'll tell you everything's okay when your life's falling apart around you. But I got to take part in a few different things. I did a writer's workshop for Wounded Warriors at the National Theatre Workshop for the Handicapped in Belfast, Maine. That year I filmed an HBO documentary with James Gandolfini called A Live Day Memories. I did various other things. And it was towards the end of the year, towards the end of '06, I thought to myself, okay, again, I'm at that point in my life where I don't like my life the way it's going. So I picked up and moved to Washington, D.C. I actually got an apartment in Alexandria, Virginia, at the same apartment complex my mom lived in when she met and married my dad. Wow. There on Duke Street in Landmark area. And 9 days after I moved up to D.C., I had a friend that I served in Iraq with was visiting. And we went to Bethesda, which is, you know, just the other side of D.C., and got a room at the Navy Lodge on base there at the National Naval Hospital. And we did that so we didn't have to drive around. We could just walk downtown Bethesda and have a good time. And we went to a place called Sapphires. And I was having a blast. We were all having a blast. And this girl walked up to me to thank me for her freedom. And her name is Leslie Green. You know, we talked for about 20 minutes. And she just wanted to let me know that there was other people that cared about me. And told me that, asked me for my phone number. She wanted to check in on me a little bit here and there. And I said, sure, yeah, that'd be great. And I never gave her my phone number. We got to talking, and I forgot to give her my number. And I walked off, and she went up to my buddy Ian and said, hey, you know, do you have his phone number? He didn't give it to me. And he said, yeah, sure. And he took her phone and he programmed my phone number into her phone. And then in true Marine fashion, he programmed his phone number into her phone. And he said, if this doesn't work out, you know,
call me.
And she called me a week later. And we just talked. We talked for like 2.5 hours that day. We wound up talking every few days on the phone, which turned into every day on the phone. I convinced her to come up to Alexandria. She was living in Richmond at the time. I convinced her to come up to Alexandria for I guess, a date, what turned into a date. And it was, the rest is history, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, isn't that one of the luckiest days of your life? Somewhere in there is
yeah,
gotta be.
Yeah, I'll tell you, meeting Leslie.
Yeah, that changed your life.
More than you can ever imagine.
Yeah.
I saw in her somebody that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
I wanted to be somebody different for her than I was.
Yeah.
And
That's nice.
she has stood by me through thick and thin.
Mm-hmm.
She has been there at the worst of times for me, and she has been there at great times. You know, she loves me, and I love her, and she's sticking with me, which is great. I know that that's hard to find, especially a lot of times in my situation with the complications. You know, I'm not just wounded physically. You know, it took its toll up here.
Sure.
There's been a lot of issues that I've had to deal with regarding that, and she's just managed to be there with me the whole time.
And so you got married when?
We got married, we actually had 2 weddings.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Our first wedding was May 22nd, 2008. We got married by a justice of the peace. We got married in some guy's living room in Richmond. Leslie's son, Caleb, was there. I think at that time he was 12. Yeah, I think he was 12. And then Leslie's mom was there, and that was it. We got married right before we moved in together. Kind of made it legit.
Yeah.
You know, all of that stuff.
Old fashioned.
Yeah. And then a year later, I told her, I said, you're going to have a wedding. We're going to actually have a real wedding. And she said, you know, I don't necessarily need one. And I said, you're going to have one, you know. So on May 16th of 2009, we did a destination wedding in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina on the beach.
Whoa.
And we got married on the beach and then went right up to the pier, to the Kitty Hawk Pier, and had our reception right there. We had just over 100 people at the wedding, and it was gorgeous.
Yeah. But the Wright brothers were not there then, right?
No. It was my wedding, not yours.
Yeah, right. And then you came back to Florida.
Eventually.
Eventually.
At that time, when we got married the first time, she moved up with me in Northern Virginia.
Right.
We moved out of my apartment in Alexandria, which was just a 1-bedroom apartment, wasn't big enough for us, into a townhouse in McLean. She got a job at Deloitte & Touche at the McLean office. At that time, I was going to Northern Virginia Community College, and I transferred, I got accepted to Georgetown University. So for the first year we were married, I was at Georgetown and she was working at Deloitte, and our son was at, I think it was Joyce Kilmer Middle School in McLean, Virginia.
Jeez, you're a name dropper.
Well, we went, I have a memory.
Yeah.
We moved to McLean because it's in Fairfax County, and it had a lot better schools than where I was in Alexandria. The school system was much better. So we spent a lot more to live there, but it was worth it because we had the better schools. Mm-hmm. You know, we moved there for the schools for Caleb.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we moved to St. Petersburg, Florida. Would have been, actually we pulled into the driveway on July 20th, 2009. We left Northern Virginia, we drove down, we stayed our first night in Richmond at Leslie's mom's, and then we drove to Pooler, Georgia. We stayed at a Holiday Inn in Pooler, kind of halfway mark, and then from there we drove right into St. Petersburg. And into the same house that I had bought in 2006.
Wow.
I had never sold it when I moved up to the DC area.
Wow.
I didn't even get rid of the furniture. When I moved into my apartment in DC in Alexandria, I'd bought new furniture. I never turned off the utilities. I left the utilities on, and I would turn off the hot water heater while I wasn't there. But it was a great place to go and escape the city, fly down to St. Pete. Sure. Hit the house. It was wonderful in the wintertime to come down to St. Pete.
Yeah, well, you gotta come by me.
Yeah, I remember when I first moved up there in January of '07, right? It was gorgeous. It was like weather in the 60s, and my dad was working at Fort Belvoir at the time up there, and he had a convertible, and we driving around, and then February hit, and the whole freaking city iced over for 2 straight weeks, and I'm from St. Petersburg, well, I don't do ice very well. That's not in my playbook.
But you could skate.
I did it. Yeah. I wound up doing it. And I did it for 2.5 years.
Too. All you got to do is step and throw.
Yeah, and it was interesting. We came home, and we wound up coming back to St. Petersburg. It was a good choice. Georgetown was not the proper school for me. I had...
Well, you're not playing basketball. So.
No, I wasn't. Yeah. But just for a visually impaired student, I'm going to be honest with you, Georgetown University is not a great school to go to. Academically, one of the top 25 schools in the nation. Yeah. There's a reason why Georgetown is the school it is. But if you're blind, not the best school. Yeah. Leslie was working like 50, 60 hours a week at Deloitte. Whoa. And we were just getting run ragged. Yeah. And we decided to pack it all up. Leslie and I were going through hard times in our marriage with some of my stuff. And we knew that if we moved to St. Petersburg, I made enough with VA disability and everything that we could move down there, we could live there. She wouldn't have to work, I wouldn't have to work. We could both go back to college and finish at the University of South Florida in St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
And then Caleb would go to school down there, and we could also spend some time and work on our marriage.
Yeah. And you did it all.
I did it all.
Yeah.
Did it all.
Good for you.
Well, are you married, Len?
Yes, I am.
So a marriage is constant work. So it's work in progress always.
Well, yeah, but my wife does work.
Yeah, and in our marriage, we found that if both people do work, it works out better.
Oh, so, God. Oh.
Scares
me off.
Yeah, when I first came back down to St. Pete in '09, I kind of had a breakdown, and I got aggressive and hostile, and I was yelling a lot, and I was breaking down quite a bit, and that's when Leslie, she really stood by me through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I managed to get through that.
That could happen again, right?
I hope not.
You hope not,
it could. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that anything could happen. Yeah. One thing I've learned in my short 34 years is that by God, anything can happen.
Yeah.
It could happen. I hope it never does.
Yeah, right.
I hope I'm able to stay on top of it.
Right.
So, but we wound up, her and I graduated from college on May 6th of this year from the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg. Leslie got a degree in psychology. I got a degree in history. I say she got her degree before me because she's Leslie Jernigan and I'm Michael Jernigan. And L comes before M. So she walked across the stage right before me. Brittany graduated with me. She had her own gown on, and actually I kind of joke with people. I say Brittany graduated ahead of me in college as well by just a nose because she was just a head further than me.
That is funny.
But I managed, I did 4.5 years of junior college right out of high school, 1.16 GPA. Yeah. 3 years and 1 day after getting whacked, I started at Northern Virginia Community College on August 23rd, 2007. I did a year there. I did a 3.85 GPA. I went to Georgetown for a year, pulled a 2.42 at Georgetown. Not bad. And then I went to USF St. Pete, and I think I pulled a 3.875 there. So when a 1.16 when I went back to college, I
Right.
graduated a cumulative of like a 3.02 or 3.01.
Yeah. Wow. Good for you.
Yeah. I managed to pull it up and graduate with a B average. You know, it was work for sure, but you know.
Okay. I think we've covered most of your life. Started out with your youth in St. Petersburg and high school in St. Petersburg, and then ultimately into the United States Marine Corps.
Yep.
And where you are still a member, and always a member. And the unfortunate situation with you in Iraq, the troubles you went through and the good times you went through when you came home. Now, at some point, somebody must have said to you, Michael, get a dog or something. How did you get
It was
that?
quick.
Okay.
Actually, one of the board members here at Southeastern Guide Dogs contacted my mom in November of 2004, just a few months after I got wounded.
Oh my.
I smoke a lot of cigars, right? And have for years. When I got hit, the guys at my local cigar place, Central Cigars in St. Petersburg, talked to the J.C. Newman rep and said, hey, we know your boss is into guide dogs, and one of our guys just went blind. Do you think you could help him? And he said, well, I'll pass the information on. And then a story, front page St. Pete Times, came out on me in November of '04, and Bobby said, oh, that's the guy my rep was talking about, and contacted my mom and said, you know, Southeastern Guide Dogs is here in Palmetto, Florida. We would love to help your son if and when he's ready. Mm-hmm. And they came to me, my parents did, and I said, this is a great idea. You know, we started talking about it. I had to get out of the Marine Corps first. Bobby started thinking more on the whole thing, and he said, you know, instead of helping just one local vet, we can help a lot more. And we started a Pause for Patriots, which is a program here at Southeastern Guide Dogs. And what it is it's a program within Southeastern where we just kind of target veterans. We kicked it off in January 2006. I helped make a donation to get it started financially, and we got it going. I was the first recipient of a Pause for Patriots dog. My first dog was a dog named Kira, I only had for 3 months. And I'll tell you, I learned a lot about myself when I finally got out of the Corps and got on my own. It turns out with my knee injury to my left knee, I drift to the left when I walk. Mm-hmm. Kira was not trained to correct for that left drift. Yeah. So she would drift to the left with me. Now she would make sure that I didn't hit anything on the way, but she just kind of drifted to the left. So I told them my problem, and they said, okay. And I brought the dog back. And a year later, in March 28, 2007, I got Brittany, who's my dog here. Okay. And Brittany's actually been specially trained to correct for my left drift as well. I've had Brittany since that day. We've been on 48 round-trip flights around the country, right? Brittany's been with me to a Rays game at Yankee Stadium. We've been up and down Santa Monica Boulevard. She's not that big of a fan of Caesar's Palace, but you know I am, so that is that. I can't even remember all of it. We've been lobbying in the halls of Congress. We've been to 3 different colleges. You know, she has kept me safe through all of that. On top of that, you know, that's her job as a guide dog. But the companionship that she's given me. Sure. You know, I mentioned briefly that it's more than just the physical wounds. You know, I have post-traumatic stress. With that comes a lot of anxiety, comes a lot of tension during stressful situations. I get tense and anxious and everything. Brittany's right there next to me, you know, and during those times I can reach down and I can pet Brittany. Sure. You know, and just know she's there, and she kind of nuzzles up against me, and it calms me. You know, it calms me down and helps me get in better control. You know, she's given me a lot of confidence. I know that I could not have finished college if it wouldn't have been for Brittany. Wow. You know, keeping me sane and safe
Yeah. Did she take your test for you?
No.
Oh.
No, but let me tell you, walking around D.C. is not an easy thing.
Right.
Walking around Georgetown University is not easy. It's extremely stressful, and Brittany was there to help me. Not only that, but she knew where my classrooms were. In Northern Virginia Community College, she knew where my classrooms were. She helped me with that companionship, that stressfulness. She helped alleviate a lot of that. There were plenty of times I came home and told my wife, Leslie, I said, I want to quit school. And Leslie would say, no, you don't. you're just frustrated right now. And,
right.
and Brittany kept me sane through all of that. Here at Southeastern, I'm blessed to have come work here after graduating from college, because it helps me find a sense of purpose in life, right?
Well, of course.
And I think that our guide dog teams that we produce here, because we don't just make guide dogs, we make guide dog teams, right? Brittany needs me to be a guide dog, and I need Brittany for us to be a guide dog team. So I think all of those teams that we have that graduate from here have that sense of purpose, have that newfound confidence, have that companionship that comes with these dogs. I've had a lot of adversity in my life. I've been broke, I've been poor, I've been drunk, I've been down, I've been broken, bloodied, the whole 9 yards. And I've managed to come back from all of that. I've managed to get a college degree, I managed to find a loving wife, I managed to get in with Southeastern Guide Dogs. All of that is great. It's overcoming adversity, and it's like my wheelhouse. With Brittany by my side and with my family there, Leslie and my mom and Caleb, my son, and all of that stuff, it's really been the factor that's helped me in overcoming all of that adversity. We've done like over 2,600 guide dog teams in the 30 years that we've been open here at Southeastern Guide Dogs. Before Pause for Patriots in 2006, we served plenty of veterans. In 2006, we started just recognizing them for their service with our Pause for Patriots program. It's an amazing program. Southeastern Guide Dogs really is an amazing school. What they've done for me is amazing. It's almost beyond words.
How many servicemen come home blind? Do you know, or partially sighted? Not too many.
It's interesting because not a lot of people come home. Like, I was the first U.S. service member to lose both eyes in the global war on terror.
Oh, geez, nice going.
Well, you go big or go home, yeah. Right? Yeah. I went big and got to go home. But I think that there are obviously there are numbers. Visually impaired, blind from the blast injuries. There's a decent amount of it. And one of the things that's happening too is multiple blast injuries. What a lot of people don't know is the blast that got me was the third IED I had been in.
Whoa.
Yeah. I've got friends that have done 3-4 tours and have been blown up 10, 12, 13 times. Some of these guys with multiple blast injuries have had their bell rung numerous times. Some of them are starting to develop visual impairment as a side effect of traumatic brain injury years later.
But are you available to those guys when they come here? If they come here, are you an assistant?
I do. I do some counseling with veterans, and it's not even counseling, because let's get real. I'm not a counselor, but it's kind of peer-to-peer. I can sit down and talk with somebody that's been newly blinded. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of people that I'm in constant contact with that have just been newly blinded.
I was going to ask you, did you make contact with the corpsman who you said he saved your life at that time? You mentioned his name. I forgot what it was.
Christopher Thompson.
Yeah. Okay.
I never saw him again.
Oh, never saw him.
He died a year later.
Oh, jeez.
In an IED in Iraq. Yeah. I went to his funeral, and it was hard.
Don't have to talk about it. talk about this place, it's a lot easier to talk about.
I lost some friends. You know, it's difficult, but you know, Southeastern has been there with me. You know, they gave me a new friend.
Yeah.
They gave me a new buddy right here.
Yeah.
You know, she's a good girl, and she's been with me. She's you know, in the Marine Corps, you're all gung-ho to go to combat your first time, and then when you get there, you're like, wow, this sucks. And you wind up not even realizing so much what you're fighting for as realizing that you're fighting for the Marine to the right of you.
That's right. Yeah. Every guy says that.
Yeah. Well, because you learn it when you're over there. All of a sudden you realize that if I do my job, I can help save them. If they do their job, they help save me.
Yeah.
Right? Well, I'm no longer in a war zone with a rifle, you know, and now I've got Brittany fighting to the left of me, helping keep me safe.
Yeah.
You know, and she's doing her job. And it's there, you know.
Well, of course we've had so many veterans on this show, and this is our 10th year.
Is that why y'all call it America's Veteran?
Yeah. We thought that would sound good, you know, but I've always been partial to World War II.
Yeah.
And because we're losing those guys so fast, and so we've had, when you talk about the guy next to you, you know, and stuff like that, I think of D-Day. When the guy next to you, he's not there. Well, where's his group? They're not there. Nobody's there. You're on your own. You know, you just go. Well, listen, Michael, is there any question that I did not ask you that I should have? Is there something that you would like to say? We're going to move up to our closing now, but
I can tell you that you know, we've got young men and women coming back now that are broken.
Yeah.
Not all of them are coming back with physical wounds. A lot of them are coming back with post-traumatic stress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and I think it's probably no more than all the other battles, but we finally recognize it as a problem. Mm-hmm. Only 1% of our population serves in the active duty military right now.
Great.
1%. And of those 1% that's coming back, they're going off and doing great things. They're going back to college. They're getting involved in nonprofits. You know, Time Magazine called us the next greatest generation.
Mm-hmm. But you're too small.
There's not a lot of us.
The number is too small.
There's not a lot of us.
So I'm gonna suggest that we have every American service country at least 2 years.
Yeah.
Don't have to be in the military. But serve your country.
Well, always remember to keep, you know, America is a wonderful place to live. We all know that.
Yeah.
Some of us that have been overseas realize that there are some real hellholes on the face of the planet.
That's right.
And that we are truly blessed to be here. And just keep that in mind. You know, when you think you're having a bad day, when you think you're having a bad day, you know, I was blown up. I've been sitting in face first in a dirt road, absolutely thinking I was going to die. You know, rounds popping all around me. That's a freaking bad day.
Yeah.
You know, when you go to the funeral of the man that saved your life, and you hug his mother and tell her, "I'm alive because your son did his job." That's a bad day. You know, remember that.
Absolutely. Well, I always suggest that everyone should get behind our armed forces. And anyone who doesn't want to should get in front of them. They don't have to be behind them.
I'll
Michael,
leave that one alone.
That's going to conclude today's program.
Excellent.
My most sincere thanks to Michael for being our special guest. Great guy. Thanks also to the staff of METV for coming to Southeastern Guide Dogs to record our program. Most of all, thanks to each and every viewer for taking time from your own busy life to watch America's Veterans. This is the 10th year of conducting programs for America's Veterans. I've had the opportunity to meet many wonderful veterans and I admire every single one of them. But I especially admire Michael, not only because he's a veteran, but more for his extraordinary strength and courage in facing his life. Michael's wonderful wife, Leslie, and his guide dog, Brittany, are there to help him every day. A Marine receiving Michael's wounds in World War II, Korea, or Vietnam most likely would not have come home. Clearly a tribute to the advancements in our military medical services. On another day, I hope to do a special show about Southeastern guide dogs. There are other veterans who could benefit from a precious dog like Brittany. You can help. Consider a meaningful donation to Paws for Patriots through Southeastern Guide Dogs. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.